Okay. Have you ever, tried to really understand a topic, but there's so much information out there, you almost don't even know where to start?
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Like, maybe it's for work, right? Maybe you have to, quickly get up to speed on something, or maybe you just want to learn something new, but you don't want to spend, a ton of time doing it.
Yeah, you're busy, you have other stuff to do.
Exactly. And it's like the more you read, the more you realize how much more there is to learn.
It can feel pretty overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, totally. So that's exactly why we're here.
That's right. Welcome to the deep dive.
It's your personal shortcut to actually understanding complex stuff.
We basically do all the hard work for you. We go through all the information out there, and we pull out the key ideas, the really important stuff.
And we present it to you in a way that's hopefully engaging and fun and easy to digest.
Yeah, we're like your guides through the information jungle.
Exactly. And today we're diving into a topic that's so crucial for how we learn and how we teach. Differentiated instruction.
That's right. We're specifically looking at differentiated instruction in classrooms, where you have a wide range of students with all sorts of different needs.
And for this deep dive, we're going to be drawing on the work of Carol Ann Tomlinson, particularly her 2017 book.
Our mission today is to really understand the core principles of differentiated instruction.
Yeah, how does it actually work in a classroom with all these different learners?
And how can teachers effectively address the diverse needs of their students?
We'll be extracting the most important takeaways from the book to give you a solid understanding of this approach.
And whether you're a teacher or a parent or just someone who's interested in education, we think you'll find this deep dive really valuable.
All right, let's get started.
So first, we need to understand the reality of classrooms today. They are so incredibly diverse.
Yeah, it goes way beyond just different academic abilities.
You have students coming from all sorts of backgrounds with all sorts of different needs and challenges, and all of that impacts how they learn.
Tomlinson gives us some really vivid examples in her book, think about a student who's super bright and capable, but they also have a learning disability.
Right, or imagine a student who's still learning English while also dealing with some pretty serious economic hardship at home.
Or a student whose life experiences might be masking their true academic potential.
And it's not just those big obvious differences either.
Yeah, Tomlinson reminds us that virtually every learner faces challenges at some point in their lives that can really affect their learning.
It could be anything from peer pressure to dealing with a loss in the family to just the normal ups and downs of growing up.
Even anxieties, fears, all of that plays a role.
And so as educators, we have to recognize that students are not all starting from the same place.
They're bringing all these different experiences and needs into the classroom with them.
And effective teaching really means being attuned to this incredible range of needs.
So differentiated instruction, it's all about moving away from this one-size-fits-all approach to teaching.
Exactly. We can't just assume that the same lesson or the same activity is going to work for every student in the room.
Tomlinson uses these really helpful analogies to illustrate this point.
Like, think about how we accept that people need different sizes and styles of clothing to fit their individual bodies and preferences.
Or how easy it is for kids these days to create their own personalized playlists of music with all their favorite songs.
We wouldn't expect everyone to be comfortable in the same outfit.
Or to enjoy listening to the same music all the time.
So why should we expect all students to thrive under the same exact learning conditions?
Right. Differentiated instruction is about recognizing that learning needs to be personalized and tailored to the individual.
It acknowledges that students learn in different ways at different paces and with different levels of prior knowledge.
So the goal is to create learning experiences that are engaging and challenging and relevant for every student.
Now, it's also important to be clear about what differentiated instruction is not.
Right. It's not just about letting students do whatever they want.
It's not about giving some students easier work or grading them differently just because, they're trying really hard.
And it's definitely not about giving students busy work to fill time if they finish an assignment early.
Tomlinson uses this really striking image. She says it's not about tailoring the same suit of clothes.
You can't just make a few minor adjustments and expect it to magically fit everyone perfectly.
Real differentiation goes much deeper than that.
It's about creating fundamentally different learning pathways that lead to the same learning goals.
And a really key element of this is the idea of fluid grouping.
What does that mean exactly?
So instead of having students permanently stuck in groups based on their perceived ability,
Like the high achievers and the low achievers.
right, you have flexible groups that change depending on the specific learning task.
So students might work with different classmates depending on the activity?
This allows teachers to create groups where students can both build on their strengths and support each other in areas where they need more help.
It's like teamwork, but with a much more dynamic and flexible approach.
And to really understand why differentiated instruction is so important, I think it's helpful to shift our perspective and try to see learning through the eyes of students.
Yeah, Tomlinson shares these short but powerful vignettes of students in her book that really bring this to life.
Like, think about Rama. She's trying to learn in a language that she doesn't understand very well.
And no one around her speaks her native language?
She appreciates the teacher's smile and her classmates' friendly gestures, but sometimes it feels like she's experiencing life from a distance.
Almost like listening to music without any sound.
She does understand quite a bit in math, though, because numbers have fewer hidden meanings than words do.
But no one ever asks her to share her mathematical thinking because they don't expect her to be able to explain it in English.
So she feels accepted, but also a little bit invisible.
Then there's Santiago. He really wants to participate in class. He wants to read aloud and ask questions and really delve into the material.
But his friends, they discourage him from doing that.
They tell him that school isn't really for kids like them.
And they question why he would even bother trying to get good grades.
So even though he's curious and he has these aspirations, the pressure from his peers makes it really hard for him to engage.
And how about Abby? She's actually reading at a much higher level than her classmates.
At home, she reads her parents' books and newspapers. She even writes and performs plays with her friends.
But in her fourth grade class, she finds the work really easy.
She aces all the spelling tests without even trying.
And it makes her feel almost dishonest because she sees other students working so hard and struggling to keep up.
So she ends up just daydreaming and making up stories in her head while she waits for her classmates to catch up.
And then there's Noah. He hates reading.
Sometimes he acts out in class, but it's not because he wants to cause trouble.
It's because he's tired of feeling inadequate when he has to read aloud in front of everyone.
He stumbles over words, and he feels like the dumbest kid in the class.
But when someone else reads the material to him, he understands it perfectly fine.
So he's confused and frustrated by this disconnect between his understanding and his ability to decode the words.
And then we have Daniel. For him, school is a safe haven. It's a place where there's no yelling and no hitting.
He appreciates his teacher's kindness, and he really wants to do well.
But he's constantly worried about his mom and his sister, and it's really hard for him to concentrate on his schoolwork.
Homework feels impossible, and he feels like he's falling behind.
And it's not because he's not capable. It's because of all the emotional weight he's carrying.
And finally, there's Anthony. He's always trying to find a connection between what he's learning in school and his own life.
He wants to understand why it matters, why he should care.
He needs to see the relevance.
And when that connection isn't made clear, he can get restless and disengaged.
These are just a few examples of the diverse learners that teachers encounter every single day.
And they illustrate why differentiated instruction is so crucial.
It's about recognizing and responding to these individual needs so that all students have a chance to learn and grow.
So now let's talk about how differentiated instruction addresses the needs of specific types of learners, starting with advanced learners.
And there's often this misconception that advanced learners will just excel on their own. They don't need any special attention.
But Tomlinson stresses that they have specific needs too.
In fact, being under-challenged can be just as detrimental as not getting enough support if you're struggling.
If advanced learners never have to really work hard, they might not develop the study skills and the resilience they need to be successful later on.
They might not learn how to deal with setbacks or how to persevere when things get tough.
Tomlinson says that advanced learners need to experience genuine challenge. They need to learn from their mistakes. They need to develop that reflective persistence.
What does that mean exactly?
It's about being able to keep working through a problem even when it's hard.
Not giving up easily.
Right, and thinking critically about your approach, trying different strategies until you find one that works.
So for advanced learners, it's not just about giving them more work. It's about giving them work that pushes them beyond their comfort zone.
Exactly, and it's about providing the support they need to be successful with those more challenging tasks.
What are some of the key principles for effectively supporting advanced learners?
Well, first, it's crucial to help them understand what high-quality work looks like at an advanced level.
So setting really clear expectations.
Right, and providing examples of complex and engaging projects.
And then guiding them in setting their own challenging goals for growth.
And as you increase the level of challenge, you also need to increase the level of support.
So they're not just flailing around out there on their own.
Exactly. High-potential learners still benefit from scaffolding and guidance.
So now let's talk about learners who are struggling.
A really important principle here is to teach with a deep belief in the potential of these learners.
Yeah, Tomlinson quotes Ayers, who warns against this toxic habit of labeling students as deficient.
When we label students like that, we unintentionally limit what we expect from them.
And we might not give them the opportunities they need to really grow.
So it's crucial to focus on their strengths, to really see what they're good at and acknowledge those strengths.
And then to design learning tasks that build on those strengths.
Because every student has areas where they shine.
And when we tap into those strengths, it can help them make progress in areas where they struggle.
It also makes them feel more confident and more motivated to learn.
And it sounds like a teacher's belief in a student can have a really powerful impact.
Absolutely. When teachers believe in their students, it creates a learning environment where success feels more attainable.
Students are more willing to take risks. They're more likely to persevere.
And this belief needs to be communicated not just through words, but through actions, through the way we design learning experiences and the kind of support we provide.
Now let's shift our attention to English language learners.
Tomlinson emphasizes that ELLs are not a homogeneous group.
They come with a wide range of strengths and challenges,
Some might have really strong literacy skills in their home language,
while others might have limited literacy in any language.
and their home lives and support systems vary a lot too.
But they all face this significant challenge of trying to master academic content while also learning a new language.
And many of them are also adapting to a new culture at the same time.
So it's like a double challenge.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to create a classroom environment where ELLs feel accepted and valued,
Where they feel like they belong.
and where they feel comfortable taking risks with their language.
So what are some concrete ways teachers can do that?
Well, one simple but powerful thing is to make an effort to learn at least a few basic words in their languages.
And to make sure you're pronouncing their names correctly.
It shows that you respect their language and their culture.
And it can make a huge difference in how a student feels about being in your classroom.
Another important step is to implement a multicultural curriculum.
So not just focusing on the dominant culture, but incorporating diverse perspectives and experiences throughout the year.
This helps students from all backgrounds feel seen and heard, and it creates a more inclusive learning environment.
And what are some key ways to position ELLs for academic success in the classroom?
One is to be really clear about your learning goals for every task, and to provide lots of different pathways for students to achieve those goals.
So not just one right way to learn something.
Right, and providing ongoing and tailored support as needed.
So what might that look like in practice?
It could involve things like providing explicit instruction in reading and writing skills that are relevant to the subject matter,
Or using visual aids and graphic organizers to support comprehension.
or teaching students effective goal-setting strategies.
And making sure they know how and when to ask for help.
It's also important to select assessment methods that don't rely solely on English language proficiency.
Right, because a student might understand the concept but struggle to express it in English.
Exactly, and when you're giving feedback, focus on concrete next steps for learning.
So be really specific about what they can do to improve.
And finally, it's important to be mindful of the potential for low status that ELLs can sometimes experience.
Because of language or cultural differences?
We need to actively work against those perceptions by highlighting their strengths and contributions.
So across all these different learners, whether they're advanced or struggling or English language learners, it seems like the core of differentiated instruction is about recognizing their individual needs and then tailoring your teaching to meet those needs.
That's exactly right. And Tomlinson emphasizes that teaching in a differentiated classroom is not static. It's not a formula. It's organic, and it's constantly evolving.
It's a process of ongoing learning and adjustment.
And it requires collaboration between teachers and students.
So teachers are constantly learning about how their students learn best.
And they're making adjustments to their teaching strategies based on what they observe.
And a crucial element in all of this is creating a supportive and positive learning environment.
The teacher sets the tone for the classroom. They model the kinds of attitudes and behaviors that foster a positive learning space.
So things like showing genuine joy in learning,
Right, appreciating students' efforts and contributions,
practicing patience when students are struggling.
and acting with kindness and generosity.
These qualities help students feel safe and respected.
And it makes them more willing to take risks and to participate in class.
And what are some concrete ways that teachers can create this kind of supportive environment?
Tomlinson highlights two key practices. explicitly teaching students how to work productively in groups, and planning for flexible grouping strategies.
And both of these rely on students developing strong collaboration skills.
So teachers need to guide students in how to be effective members of a group.
It's not just about throwing them together and hoping for the best.
Right, you have to teach them how to communicate effectively, how to listen to each other, how to resolve conflicts.
And how to work towards a common goal.
Exactly. And you need to design learning tasks that require genuine collaboration.
So where each member has a role to play and where everyone's contributions are valued.
And then you need to provide clear expectations for group work,
So students know what's expected of them.
and they know how to get help if they're stuck.
Flexible grouping is also a really important part of this.
Tomlinson gives some great examples of what that looks like in practice.
Like Mrs. Eames, who uses flexible reading arrangements throughout the week.
Her students might read together as a whole class, then break into small groups based on their reading levels or their interests.
Then they might work in pairs, and they also have time for independent reading.
This allows her to address specific skill gaps while also giving students choices and opportunities to explore their passions.
And then there's Mrs. Riley, who uses learning centers in her classroom.
She often assigns students to specific centers based on their readiness levels, but she also gives them some choice based on their interests.
So it's a blend of teacher guidance and student autonomy.
And Mr. Blackstone, the science teacher, he uses formative assessments to guide his differentiation.
So he's constantly checking for understanding during lessons.
And then he adjusts his homework assignments and lab activities based on what he observes.
So students who are already demonstrating mastery can move on to more challenging work.
While students who need more support get the help they need.
And then there's Mr. Morales, the math teacher. He made a big shift in his approach to teaching.
He started incorporating pre-assessments to see where his students were starting from.
And then he started providing a variety of instructional activities to cater to different learning styles.
And he started using flexible grouping strategies.
And this resulted in a huge increase in both student engagement and their understanding of the math concepts. So these are just a few examples of how flexible grouping can work in a differentiated classroom.
Now, what are some specific strategies that teachers can use for differentiation?
There are so many different options available.
One is to use a variety of learning resources,
So providing texts at different reading levels,
offering different kinds of instructional materials,
incorporating technology in diverse ways.
and even using peer tutoring.
Another strategy is to differentiate the learning activities themselves,
So offering different levels of challenge or support within the same activity.
or providing choices in how students demonstrate their learning.
You can also use small group tasks that are tailored to students' readiness levels, interests, or talents.
And providing anchor activities can be really helpful too.
Those are activities that students can work on independently when they finish other assignments at different paces.
It helps to manage the flow of the classroom.
And you can also give students options for how they take notes and how they express their learning.
Some students might prefer to draw diagrams or create concept maps, while others might prefer to write traditional notes,
And then there are specific instructional structures, like learning stations,
where students rotate through different activities,
literature circles, where students discuss books in small groups.
and tiered activities that address the same learning goal, but at different levels of complexity.
So there's a whole toolkit of strategies available.
Now, when it comes to planning for differentiated instruction, where do teachers even begin?
Tomlinson outlines 3 main dimensions that guide this planning: student readiness, student interest, and learning profile.
Okay, let's start with readiness.
So readiness differentiation is about tailoring instruction to a student's current skill level and their existing understanding of a topic.
So meeting them where they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tomlinson uses this analogy of an equalizer with these continuums.
Like, on a stereo.
Right, so you can adjust the different sliders to find the right level of challenge and support for each student.
So what are some of these continuums?
Well, you might move from foundational understanding to transformational insights.
So starting with the basics and then building towards more complex ideas,
Or you might move from concrete examples to abstract concepts.
or from simple tasks to complex problems,
Or from focusing on a single facet to exploring multiple facets.
or from a more structured approach to a more open-ended exploration,
Or from being dependent on the teacher to becoming more independent.
or from a slower pace to a quicker pace.
The idea is to adjust these sliders to match the student's development.
So some practical strategies for readiness differentiation include things like tiered assignments
where you have different versions of the same assignment at different levels of complexity.
and providing different levels of scaffolding during activities.
So some students might need more support than others.
Now let's talk about interest differentiation.
This is all about tapping into what really motivates students.
What are they passionate about?
What are they curious about?
So key elements here include giving students voice and choice,
Letting them have some say in what they learn and how they learn it.
and making the learning tasks personally meaningful and relevant to their lives,
So connecting what they're learning to their own interests and experiences
and fostering a sense of ownership over their learning.
so they feel like they have a stake in it.
What are some ways teachers can do that?
They can allow students to pursue related side investigations or research projects that connect to their interests.
They can show clear connections between what they're learning in the classroom and real-world applications.
And they can offer choices in how students demonstrate their understanding.
Tomlinson suggests thinking about broad categories of student interests, like different genres of literature,
Or mathematical puzzles.
or different modes of creative expression,
Or different styles of music or art.
or even personal collections.
And she mentions specific instructional strategies like web quests and jigsaw activities.
So those are activities where students become experts on one piece of information, and then they teach it to their classmates.
Okay, now let's talk about learning profile differentiation.
So this is about the different ways that individuals learn best.
And while the traditional concept of fixed learning styles has been debated, there's still value in recognizing that students have different preferences for how they take in information and how they process it,
So some students might be visual learners,
while others might be auditory learners.
and others might be kinesthetic learners.
So it's important to teach through multiple modalities and to provide students with options,
Tomlinson also talks about different intelligence preferences.
like Gardner's multiple intelligences and Sternberg's triarchic theory of intelligence.
So it's not just about learning styles, it's also about recognizing that students have different strengths and talents.
And that we need to provide opportunities for them to use those strengths.
So some practical strategies for learning profile differentiation include things like complex instruction
Which involves small group work with clearly defined roles that require different kinds of thinking,
and RAFT assignments.
which allows students to choose their role, their audience, their format, and their topic.
So it's about giving them more control over their learning.
Now, when we talk about differentiating instruction, it's not just one thing. It's a range of ways we can adjust the learning experience for students,
So we can differentiate the content,
which is what students learn,
access,
which is how they make sense of the content,
and the product.
which is how they demonstrate their learning.
And we can differentiate based on readiness, interest, and learning profile.
Right. So let's say you're teaching a unit on the American Revolution.
You could differentiate the content by providing different texts at different reading levels.
Or by offering different research topics.
You could differentiate the process by providing different kinds of activities.
Like some students might do a traditional research paper, while others might create a website or a documentary.
And you could differentiate the product by allowing students to choose how they present their learning.
Some might write a report, others might give a presentation, and others might create a piece of art.
Now, one question that often comes up is how does grading work in a differentiated classroom?
It's a tricky issue because traditional grading systems can sometimes conflict with the principles of differentiation.
Right, because differentiation is all about meeting students where they are and recognizing their individual growth.
While traditional grading systems tend to emphasize comparison to others.
Tomlinson points out that grading should support learning, not hinder it.
And many experts recommend that teachers do less overall grading and focus more on providing formative assessment and feedback.
So less about assigning points and more about giving students guidance on how to improve.
Exactly. And when it comes to assigning summative grades, it can be helpful to consider performance process and progress separately.
So not just lumping everything together into one grade.
Right, because that can obscure important information about a student's learning journey,
And many schools are also exploring standards-based grading.
which focuses on reporting a student's level of mastery on specific learning standards.
What about advanced learners and their parents? They might be concerned about how differentiation affects grading.
That's a valid concern because they're used to getting high grades.
And they might worry that a focus on individual growth will somehow disadvantage them.
It's important to communicate that embracing challenge and developing resilience are valuable skills.
And that struggling and making mistakes are a natural part of the learning process.
And it's crucial to help advanced learners develop effective study and self-evaluation skills.
So they can monitor their own progress and set challenging goals for themselves.
And what are some practical tips for managing grading in a differentiated classroom?
Well, one is to use student work folders or digital portfolios.
So you can keep track of all the different assignments and feedback,
You can also share the responsibility for tracking progress with students.
and try to reduce the overall amount of grading you do.
So you can focus on providing more meaningful feedback.
Involving students in parent-teacher conferences can also be really powerful.
So they can talk about their own learning and the differentiated approaches that are being used.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into differentiated instruction, what would you say is the most important message for our listeners?
I think the key takeaway is that differentiated instruction is really about recognizing and responding to the incredible diversity of learners in our classrooms
It's about moving away from this one-size-fits-all approach to teaching.
and embracing the idea that every student has unique needs and strengths
And that we need to tailor our instruction to meet those needs.
so that all students have the opportunity to learn and grow.
And it's an ongoing process. It's not something you do once and then you're done.
It requires constant attention to individual students.
And a willingness to adapt and adjust.
But ultimately, it's about creating a more equitable and supportive learning environment for all.
So as you reflect on this deep dive, think about which aspect of differentiated instruction resonated most with you.
What stood out to you?
What questions do you still have?
And how might you apply these principles in your own work or in your own life?
Because even if you're not a teacher, these ideas can be really valuable for anyone who's involved in learning or teaching in any capacity.
We're all constantly learning and growing and adapting.
And differentiated instruction is really just a framework for making that process more effective and more meaningful for everyone involved.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.